Right. Okay, yeah. You had mentioned the freedom, the fact that it is, since nature provided us this capacity for freedom, therefore, exactly what were you saying? कि responsibility कहाँ जाती है?
No, simply the fact that only us have that possibility to, not do it right. No one
Yeah,
else has the scope because it's fixed, so definitive. So
right.
that's it. Like, so we can be given some credit that, yeah, we will eventually find our way. But this is what the blessing which we have. Manjuji and I were discussing then further on this, and so this is like, in a way, the understanding has to be built. That's the human journey.
Yeah,
And but there's also scope for us to deviate and, not fall, make the wrong understanding, wrong assurances, and then again do the course correction. And I think
yeah,
that is the part of our journey
yeah.
as you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a boon and also a responsibility. So maybe to quote or modify Spider-Man a bit, with great freedom comes great responsibility. With great power, or not to modify at all, maybe. But yeah, of course, if you have freedom, then you have the responsibility of your action. If you're determined, then the responsibility isn't with you. Then it's somewhere else.
Hmm.
So responsibility to tabhi aayegi if the choice is in your hands, no?
Hmm.
Otherwise, for an atom that is functioning this way, or a rock that is functioning this way or that way, or water that is flowing this way or that way, it's all the environmental conditions that are determining its behavior. So if water, say there's a flood that occurs, we can't hold the water responsible. The only thing that can be held responsible is the thing that has choice, that has freedom, that has agency. So humans are the only responsible actors, agents in nature. So yeah, that is our journey. That is the significance of being human.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see again what is said about humanity.
Yeah.
खत्म हो गया बात। विधि से नियंत्रित रहना है। संस्कार क्या है? समझदारी बराबर संस्कार।
So what is sanskar? Sanskars, understanding equals sanskar.
खत्म हो गया बात।
Again,
समझदारी जब तक तब तक पूरा होने वाला नहीं है जब तक हम जीवन अस्तित्व को समझे नहीं है, तब तक ये समझदारी पूरा होना नहीं है।
And understanding is not going to complete, is not going to finish until we understand the Jeevan, existence, and humane conduct. Until then, it will not be completed, our understanding.
समझदारी पूरा होने का प्रमाण ही है मानवतापूर्ण आचरण।
The evidence of complete understanding is itself humane conduct.
इस ढंग की बात बनता है।
This is how the logic forms.
ऐसे मानव संस्कार अनुषंगी विधि से ये समझदार होता है, फलस्वरूप समाधानित होता है, व्यवस्था में जीता है। इनका आचरण मानवीय आचरण कहलाता है।
In this way, the humans are sanskar concordant. They, what was it? Understand, live in accordance.
ये समझदार होता है, फलस्वरूप समाधानित होता है, व्यवस्था में जीता है। इनका आचरण मानवीय आचरण कहलाता है।
So they are sanskar concordant or understanding concordant. Then they understand, and as a consequence of that, they become resolved. They find resolution, and are able to live in an order. That is to say, they live with humane conduct.
व्यवस्था में जीता है। इनका आचरण मानवीय आचरण कहलाता है। जब व्यवस्था में जीता है, व्यवस्था में नहीं।
So when they live in order, that is when their conduct is called humane conduct. When they don't live in order,
जी पाता है तो नहीं, उसका नाम है अमानवीय आचरण।
When they are unable to live in order, that is given the name inhumane conduct.
ऐसा बन पाता है कहने में। अब उसके बाद ये मानवीय आचरण अमानवीय आचरण का परिभाषा।
This is how it turns out in speaking. And after that, the definition of humane conduct and inhumane conduct
बनता है, परिभाषा
be
बन करके कहीं ना कहीं कुछ दूर तक पता लगता है, ये हमको जरूरत है नहीं जरूरत है, ये सब पता लगता है। पता लगने की बाद परिभाषा बन करके कहीं ना कहीं कुछ दूर तक पता लगता है, ये हमको जरूरत है नहीं जरूरत है, ये सब पता लगता है।
And once the definition has been formed, after that we can sense, we can find out to some extent whether we need it or we don't need it.
पता लगने की बाद जो जरूरत है उसकी ओर आदमी का प्रवृत्ति होती है, फलस्वरूप वो स्वाभाविक रूप में जागृत होने की रास्ता।
And after finding out what this humane conduct is, and then checking whether we need it or not, then based on what has been recognized as needed, the individual moves towards fulfilling that. And in this way, the path towards awakening begins.
आदमी का प्रवृत्ति होती है, फलस्वरूप वो स्वाभाविक रूप में जागृत होने की रास्ता बनी है।
So naturally, after identifying what is needed, then there's a natural tendency to move towards it. And as a consequence, there's a natural path that emerges towards awakening. So this is all based on identifying what is the definition of humane conduct, then checking within ourselves whether we need it or not. Is it important for me or not? And if once we identify that it's needed for me, then naturally I will move towards it. If I don't identify it as something important to me, then we won't move towards it. But if we see it that this is important to me, then there will be a natural movement towards further awakening, further understanding.
ठीक है, ये एक सामान्य घाट हुई। इन घाट के आधार पर हम पुनः आगे चलते हैं। तो
Okay, so this is a straightforward checkpoint milestone, and after this milestone we will move forward. That is,
संस्कार का मतलब तो आपको समझ में आ गई है कि जो समझदारी ही है। समझ
so you have understood the meaning of sanskar, which is simply understanding.
समझदारी तीन मुद्दे पर निर्भर है: मानवीयता, पूर्णाचरण, जीवन ज्ञान, अस्तित्व दर्शन। ठीक है।
And understanding is dependent upon 3 points only, which is humane conduct, knowledge of the Jeevan, knowledge of humane conduct, knowledge of the Jeevan, and a holistic view of existence.
अस्तित्व दर्शन में 4 अवस्था की बात हुई। 4 अवस्था में से एक अवस्था है मानव।
Within the holistic view of existence, we talked about the 4 orders, and within the 4 orders, one order is the human.
ये सारे अवस्था कैसे है? सत्ता में संपर्क प्रकृति के रूप में ही है।
And how are all of these 4 orders? They are all in the form of nature saturated within potence.
मानव भी सत्ता में संपर्कित है, और पत्थर भी है, मणि भी है, धातु भी है, सारे जीव जानवर भी है, झाड़ पौधे भी है, सभी का सभी सत्ता में, व्यापक वस्तु में एक एक वस्तु भिगा हुआ है, डूबा है, घिरा हुआ है।
So humans are also saturated in potence. So are stones, as are gems, as are metals, as हाँ.
बहुत पतला नहीं, थोड़ा मोटा, मतलब ज्यादा भी मोटा नहीं।
Hello.
Sorry.
Sorry. Did you say something?
No, Drishta.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, all of these things from the human being is also saturated in potence. So as our stones, as our gems and metals and plants and shrubs and all animals, everything is saturated in this potence, in this omnipresent entity. That is all the entities of nature. That is all of these unitary entities, these countable entities are immersed, uh, surrounded, and pervaded within space, within this potence.
सारे जीव जानवर भी है, झाड़ पौधे भी है, सभी का सभी सत्ता में, व्यापक वस्तु में एक एक वस्तु भिगा हुआ है, डूबा है, घिरा हुआ है.
So these are three words. So saturated is defined as basically bhiga hua, duba hua, ghira hua. So completely immersed is bhiga hua. Like that is it is sorry, completely pervaded is bhiga hua. Ki it's going through and through. So space is going through and through all units of nature. Then it is duba hua. That is, it is completely immersed. It cannot come out of it. It is drowned in this space. So all units of nature are completely immersed in space, and they are completely ghira hua or surrounded by space in all directions. So that is what is meant by saturated in space or saturated in potence. Pervaded, immersed, and surrounded.
इस ढंग से सबकी स्थिति हुई. तो सबकी स्थिति होने की पश्चात यहाँ से और एक सूत्र की याद आवश्यक है.
In this way, that is the state that of all of these entities. And on the basis of this state, there is another principle that we can derive, which is worth remembering.
जीवन नित्य रहती है, निरंतर. जीवन कभी मरता नहीं.
That is, the Jeevan exists eternally, constantly. The Jeevan never dies.
ना पैदा होता है.
Nor is it born.
क्या बात है? जीवन ना तो पैदा होता है, ना मरता है.
That the Jeevan is neither born nor does it die.
ठीक हो गए? और शरीर.
Does that fit all right? And then the body?
पैदा भी होता है और मर भी जाता है.
The body is born and it also dies.
ठीक हो गए? तो जीवन के जीवन सहज विधि से मानव शरीर को चलाना चाहता है. जीवन सहज विधि क्या है? सुखी होने की कार्य.
So, is that all right? That the Jeevan neither is born nor does it die, but the body is born also and it even dies. And it is by this, the natural way of the Jeevan, the natural manner of the Jeevan, through which it runs the body. And what is this natural way of the Jeevan? The natural way of the Jeevan is to be happy.
शरीर को चलाना चाहता है. जीवन सहज विधि क्या है? सुखी होने की कार्यक्रम है. जीवन सुखी होता है.
So what is this natural way of the Jeevan? It is this entire program to be happy. The Jeevan becomes happy.
और जीव सब जीने की आशा से तंगे रहते हैं. जीने की आशा से वंशानुसंगीता विधि से जीते.
Whereas all animals remain hung up on this, on the hope to live. So they, based on this hope to live and this lineage concordance, they
रहते हैं. जीने की आशा से वंशानुसंगीता विधि से जीते.
So with this hope to live and this lineage concordance, that is how they live.
मनुष्य सुखी होने की विधि से जीना चाहता है और वंशानुसंगीत ढंग से जीने जाता है, परेशान होता है.
Humans want to live based on this desire to be happy, and then they go about living based on lineage concordance. Therefore, they are unhappy.
और वंशानुसंगीत ढंग से जीने जाता है, परेशान होता है. इतनी ही बात है. जीते हैं। मनुष्य सुखी होने की विधि से जीना चाहता है और वंशानुषंगी ढंग से जीने जाता है, परेशान होता है।
So humans want to live by way of becoming happy, but they go about living by way of lineage concordance, and therefore they become troubled. That is all that it is.
इतनी ही बात। ठीक।
All right?
तो इसको अच्छी ढंग से हमको समझने की जरूरत है, इसको अच्छे ढंग से हृदयंगम करने की जरूरत है, इसको अच्छे ढंग से प्रमाणित करने की जरूरत है।
So this is something that we must understand properly. This is something that we must internalize properly, and this is something that we must evidence properly.
ये जरूरतों को पूरा करना हमारा काम है।
And to fulfill these needs is our work. Is what
जय
we
हो,
do.
मंगल हो, कल्याण हो।
Jai ho, mangal ho, kalyan ho. That's how he ends. So may there be victory, may there be welfare, may there be well-being.
तो प्रमाणित करने का यदि कोई वस्तु है, इस बात पर अपन नजर डाल चुके हैं, समझदारी ही प्रमाणित करने की वस्तु है।
Now, if there is anything worth evidencing that we have already discussed, that thing is only understanding.
जिसको हम समझाकर प्रमाणित करते हैं।
Which we evidence based on explanation.
उसका विधि यह है, जब हम आपसे समझते हैं, उसको मैं जब दूसरों को समझा पाता हूं, तब आप प्रमाणित हुए।
And the method in which this happens is that when I understand from you, and then I am able to explain the very same thing to someone else, in that way, you have become evidenced. So there are three people. The first person understood something, they explain it to the second. The second understands. And if they have understood, they will be able to explain it to the third. And when the third understands, that is the evidence of the understanding of the first person.
तब तक हम प्रमाणित हुए नहीं।
Until then, I have not been evidenced.
आप प्रमाणित हुए नहीं।
And you have not been evidenced.
इस विधि से एक बहुत बड़ी भारी आसार इससे समझ में आता है, परंपरा में समझदारी बहती है।
And in this way, a very grand possibility can be recognized. That is, in tradition, understanding flows. So that, or understanding flows in tradition. And here tradition refers to a continuity from generation to generation to generation. So it is in tradition that understanding flows.
एक समझ में आता है। दूसरा सूत्र उसी के साथ अपने आप में समझ में आता है, ना समझी परंपरा में बहता नहीं है।
This is the first thing that is understandable. And along with this, the second thing that can be understood is that ignorance or delusion does not flow in tradition.
ना समझी परंपरा में बहता नहीं है।
Lack of understanding or delusion does not flow in tradition.
इसका कैसा हम स्पष्ट कर लिए, इसके पहले स्पष्ट हो चुकी है, पुनः याद दिलाने की क्रम में।
How did we come to this? This has already been clarified earlier, but in the course of revisiting that,
ये बात को अपन स्वीकार चुके हैं, हम सही में एक हैं, गलती में अनेक हैं.
We have already accepted this notion that we are one in the right and many in the wrong.
किसी गलती को हम आगे पीढ़ी के लिए हम अर्पित भी करते हैं, उसके साथ उनका कल्पनाशीलता जुड़ करके नया तरीका बन जाता है.
Even if we dedicate one mistake to the next generation, in that the next generation adds their imagination and turns it into something new.
बहा कहाँ है?
So where did it flow?
बहता है केवल समझदारी है, ना समझी बहता नहीं है.
Because what flows is only understanding, and delusion does not flow.
ये बात अपने को पता लगता है.
This is something we find out.
इसी के साथ यह भी अपने को दूसरा भाग भी समझ में आता है, नासमझी को बहाने के क्रम में पीढ़ी से पीढ़ी कुंठित होना ही है.
And along with this, another thing that we can understand is that in the course of trying to make delusions flow, there is the generation to generation will undoubtedly become kunthit. Kunthit is like angsty or unkunthit.
Angst is
yeah.
good word.
I can only think of angst.
Angst, kuntha is like deeper pain, like, deep-seated pain, which
Yeah.
doesn't go easily. That's kuntha.
It's like indignance or frustration, something like that. Angst, indignation, frustration, and sadness combined. So in the effort to make delusion flow from one generation to another, what that leads to is this development of angst and frustration among the new generations.
So, Drishta, question here. This stupidity or ignorance can flow from one generation to another, and we see that also, right? What he's saying is life to life, it doesn't flow.
No. He's saying generation to generation.
That's what I'm saying. He's saying generation. Is he saying generation to generation also only understanding will flow and ignorance will not flow?
Yes. So he's saying what happens if you are looking at delusion. So ignorance is more like a lack of understanding, whereas delusion is wrong acceptances. It's not an absence, but the wrong thing in its stead. So that is, nasamji is not without understanding. It is having some wrong belief in the place of the right understanding. So what happens when we try to pass down some wrong understanding from one generation to the other? We try to pass it down, and because it dissatisfies the next generation, they will add their creativity to it and change it because it won't satisfy them. So in that way, it does not end up flowing. That's what he was saying.
Like in pure form, basically, it is not accepted and then more is added to it. But
Yeah.
otherwise it does flow. No? Like we see what is there in parents comes in children, whatever na samjhi to an extent. Like not necessarily, but there's a huge chance that it might come. We pass on our biases to our children. We pass on.
Yeah, but it won't be identical because the child will change it. The child sees that same bias, sees that same, problematic behavior, and they are affected by it. Often you will find children who complain about certain behaviors and their parents end up exhibiting those very behaviors in a slightly modified way. So they're not able to recognize that they are also exhibiting very similar things in themselves because it looks slightly different for them, in them. So you can say, of course, it looks very familiar from the outside, but actually that understanding has not flowed down. It has had its influence, but it is actually not flowing down in the sense that that is not what has gone through. That came through and then it was modified into something else, which is very similar also maybe, but also slightly different in its manifestation.
Correct. But Samaj will flow in the purest form. Like if there
Yeah,
is real Samaj, then it will flow as it is. And it will not require any addition or subtraction because it's complete in itself.
yeah, because it is satisfying. Only that will continue to flow as it is, which will satisfy everyone as it is, in which people will not need to change anything. So modifications
Fair.
are only needed in those things which are unsatisfactory. So
Fair.
for that reason.
Yeah.
And here we can look at our education system, our content, our pedagogies, our infrastructure, our so many things. They keep changing. We keep trying this or that and the other because we dislike something. We think, oh, maybe this is the problem, and we change a little bit. But but even that is dissatisfactory. So the next generation changes even that. So you'll see in our education policies, our education pedagogies, our content, our syllabus, our curriculum, it's constantly changing from generation to generation.
Yeah.
And also
Yeah.
the ways of raising children. Often you'll see it swinging back and forth also. Say one generation was super liberal, then the next generation will be like, no, see, our parents' liberalness made us irresponsible and made us face so many difficulties in life. We are going to be very orderly and disciplined with our children. But then those children feel suffocated and they'll be like, oh, no, we will be very open and free and liberal with our children. So you see the swinging back and forth also in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So that's what he's talking about.
Yeah, and you make like a superficial changes if you think of it, like change this and that until you don't change the root, like you don't fix the root problem. And that's why you keep on changing small things, but otherwise the root problem exists, which remains unsolved, unchanged.
Yeah, that's what.
Okay. Let's continue. No, I was saying let's continue.
Okay.
पीढ़ी कहीं ना कहीं कुंठित होकर के तो कहीं ना कहीं असंतुष्टि की दलदल में आना ही है.
So the next generation, in some way or the other, will become frustrated and will fall into this daldal is what? A swamp. This will end up somehow falling into the swamp of dissatisfaction.
चाहे आप हो, मैं हो, हमारा पिताजी हो, कोई भी हो, हालत ये की है.
Whether it's me or you or our father, no matter who it may be, the situation is the same.
यदि ये समझ में आता है तो और भी सुदृढ़ होता है समझदारी की आवश्यकता कितना है.
That means if we understand this, then we become even more affirmed or determined in how important understanding is.
समझदारी ही एकमात्र वस्तु है जो कि आगे पीढ़ी को अर्पित होता है.
Understanding is the one and only entity that can be given forward to the next generation. That can be dedicated to the next generation.
और उसमें क्या विविधता नहीं होता है? होता है. क्या बात विविधता होता है?
क्या नहीं होता?
और उसमें क्या विविधता नहीं होता है? होता है. क्या बात विविधता होता है? और प्रस्तुति में विविधता होता है.
And within that, is there going to be no diversity? No, there's going to be diversity. What is that diversity going to be? The diversity will be in presentation.
हम एक गणित को 2 मिनट में हम ठीक करता हूँ. आप जो है ना 1 मिनट में दो को ठीक कर देते हो.
I solve one math problem in 2 minutes. You can solve 2 math problems in 1 minute.
ये विविधता आती है.
This is the diversity that occurs.
सही करने की गति और प्रखर होता जाता है.
The speed of doing the right thing continues to improve.
सही करने की तरीका और प्रखर होता जाता है. सही करने की सार्थकता और सुलभ होता जाता है.
The methodology of doing the right thing keeps improving, and the meaningfulness of doing the right thing becomes more and more accessible.
क्या बात है.
How wonderful.
ये छोटा सा काम,
This is the
ये
small task.
मैं समझता हूँ सर्वमानव के लिए इसकी आवश्यकता है. इसलिए समझदारी से संपन्न मानव परंपरा ही सही ढंग से परंपरा को और आगे इसकी आवश्यकता है.
As I understand it, all of humanity requires this.
इसलिए समझदारी से संपन्न मानव परंपरा ही सही ढंग से परंपरा को और आगे पीढ़ी को अपने समझदारी को अर्पित कर स्वयं संतुष्ट हो सकता है और आगे पीढ़ी संतुष्ट होता ही है.
And that is why it is a human tradition endowed with understanding that is able to dedicate its understanding to the next generation and thus feel a sense of contentment. And the next generation also naturally feels that sense of contentment.
कि समाधान से सब संतुष्ट होना है.
Because with resolution, everyone is content.
समझदारी से ही समाधान होना है और समझदारी ना होने से समस्या होना ही होना.
And resolution comes from understanding itself. And in the absence of understanding, we are bound to have problems.
ये कुल मिलाकर के मतलब निकलता है.
This is the meaning that comes out altogether.
इस विधि से हम यहाँ पहुँचते हैं समझदारी की आवश्यकता और बलवती होने की जगह में आ गए.
In this way, we reach here where the need for understanding becomes stronger and stronger.
पहला समझदारी तो यही है जीवन स्वरूप.
The first understanding is the form of the Jeevan.
जीवन स्वरूप एक गठनपूर्ण परमाणु है. ठीक है. तो जिसमें प्रस्थापन विस्थापन क्रिया समाप्त हो गई है.
So the form of the Jeevan is as a configurationally complete atom in which the activity of fission and fusion has ended.
समाप्त होने के बाद वो गठनपूर्ण परमाणु कहलाया, नाम हुआ और गठनपूर्ण परमाणु में चैतन्य प्रवृत्ति बन गई.
And upon this end of fission and fusion, it can be considered to be configurationally complete. And upon becoming configurationally complete, it develops this conscious nature.
चैतन्य प्रवृत्ति का मतलब भी है संवेदनाओं को प्रमाणित करना.
The meaning of this conscious nature is itself to be able to evidence sensations.
संवेदनशीलता जो है सुस्पष्ट है शब्द स्पर्श रूप रस गंधेंद्रियों के रूप. संवेदनशीलता जो है सुस्पष्ट है शब्द स्पर्श रूप रस गंधेंद्रियों के रूप में.
So sensitivity is clear in itself.
संवेदनशीलता जो है सुस्पष्ट है शब्द स्पर्श रूप रस गंधेंद्रियों.
What? Okay. In the form of the 5 sense organs of sight, smell, taste, touch, and sound.
Brishta, should
Fine.
we start this from tomorrow? We are
Okay.
at 7:32 and this is starting something new, starting it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. ठीक है. Let's do this from tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right. ठीक है.
Alright.
Let's कल Friday है ना?
Yes, we can finish this, I think, tomorrow.
ठीक है. Okay. See you. Bye.